Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church, and I'm here today on what sometimes is called Maundy Thursday or Holy Thursday. This is the night, the day that Jesus celebrated the last Passover with his disciples. Now, the law required all males, Jewish males, to come to Jerusalem and celebrate Passover. And the disciples had already done that for 2 years. So today didn't seem all that different, but yet it was. And here we find where Jesus did something incredible. He changed some of the Passover celebration. And you don't do that. That thing was sacred. You don't touch it. But he did. And he did for reasons that you and I now know are so meaningful. But the disciples didn't understand. So let's look here at chapter 13 of the Gospel of John and see some of this that they didn't understand. Before this Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave the world and return to his Father. He'd loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he loved them to the very end. It was time for supper. The devil had already prompted Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. And Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything, and that he had come from God and would return to God. So he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and poured water into a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around them. And when he came to Simon Peter, Peter said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You don't understand now what I'm doing, but someday you will." And Peter protested, "No, you will never wash my feet." And Jesus looked at him and said, "Unless I wash your feet, you won't belong to me." Can you imagine this man that you had walked with and been with for nearly 3 years, that you had seen work miracle after miracle after miracle, and make statements and teachings that nobody ever had done like before? Now we come to Passover, which is the celebration to remember the time that the angel of death passed over the house of Israel in order to allow them, or to allow Pharaoh, convince Pharaoh to let them leave Egypt and go to the promised land. All these guys knew how this thing worked. All of them knew exactly what to do and when to do it. And so they start the Passover and everything seems to be going well. And then Jesus messes it up, if you will. He takes a towel and he starts washing the disciples' feet. Now, understand that in the disciples' day, mainly they wore sandals. It was very dusty conditions. The roads were all dirt. And so your feet got pretty dirty. And the standard of behavior was that when you came to somebody's house, a servant would wash your feet as a sign of helping you feel clean and of respect for you to walk into the house. So Jesus starts washing the disciples' feet. And here's Simon Peter, blessed Simon, who thinks, well, he thinks he's a little bit better than everybody else. He really does. It gets to him, and Jesus starts getting ready to wash his feet. And Peter says, "Absolutely not. You're not going to do this. You're the master. How dare you wash my feet?" This is terrible. This is a ridiculous notion. And you can kind of see the scene where Jesus is kneeling down at Peter's feet. Peter's throwing his tantrum, so to speak. And Jesus just looks up at him and he says, if I don't wash your feet, you don't have any part of me. Can you imagine how that resonated with Peter and his spirit? Can you imagine how Peter felt at that moment? But Jesus goes on and he says, you don't understand right now, but one day you will. And at that point, Peter says, well, then wash all of me. And Jesus explains a little later on, I don't need to wash all of you. What was Jesus doing? He was demonstrating with his own life that he wasn't better than anybody who was at that table. In fact, he was being the servant to them. And we know from the rest of this story that trying to be better than someone is the exact opposite of what Christianity is all about. Following Jesus means to be the least of the group. Now, don't go carry that too far, and this humility stuff that says I'm nobody, I'm worthless. That's not it. That I don't know what it is, but that isn't it. But it is knowing that except for the grace of God, I wouldn't be any different than the worst of us. And I'm demonstrating that by washing somebody's feet. Now, most groups of Christians don't wash feet. A few do. Around here in the Springs area, more than others, because there are a lot of Mennonites and Amish around here who do that. But most Christians don't. They've sort of lost that as a symbol of something. And I think that every so often, you and I need, well, we need a good humbling experience. We need God to do something that reminds us, if it weren't for his grace and love, we'd have nothing to offer. And I know some of you listening to me today think you don't have anything to offer anyway. Well, you can think that. But this passage demonstrates that you do, because Jesus wants to wash your feet too. And if you're not in a church that does that, then at least find some time to get by yourself and close your eyes and see Jesus doing that to you. Why? Because he loves you that much. He wants you to be clean in every sense of the word. I don't know how you approach Easter. Today is a very important day. Tomorrow's even more important. But today, this is when we celebrate the moment that God ensures our forgiveness. Thanks for listening. If you have a need or a concern, call us. We'll do whatever we can, as fast as we can, to help meet your need. God bless you. Thanks for sharing your time. I'll talk to you